Hey, Sid and Darren, I know we're going to hear from both of you in a minute. First, I want to thank you for being willing to share some wisdom about being an all-distributed company with our Lambda people. So much appreciate your time. Sid, it's been not quite 2 years, but a while since you and I first were in a venue like this. I remember it well. I had a great time. I thought it was one of the best conversations I'd had in a long time about how to be a successful remote company when I was at Envision, and obviously you were still, in the same seat as you were then. And a lot has happened to the world since then. A lot of people have had to go remote in the last 6 months, maybe not by choice, but everybody's learning to be work this way. And for Lambda, we weren't fully remote, although we had a lot of remote employees when COVID hit. We were quick to close our physical operations and have decided to lean into at least being remote first or remote centric for the time being. And one of the things I'm interested in getting perspectives on from elder statesperson companies like GitLab, who have been doing this a long time and very successfully, is just some basic strategies and advice, wisdom as it were, from you to us as a company starting this journey on things to think about, consider, do, not do, et cetera. Recognizing that there's a lot of different ways to be successful remote, but what can we learn from you is essentially the question. Sid.
Thanks. Thanks, Mark. Pleasure to be calling with you again. And I think what was eye-opening to us is that you have to organize informal communication. And if you don't do that, you'll have people say like, I long back to the office. I can't wait to go back to the office, which a lot of people are saying right now in the middle of this pandemic. And then they don't mean that they long back to the commute. They don't long back to their office furniture. They long back to that informal communication they had before. And you can organize that. Just like you have a facilities manager if you have an office, I think companies and organizations should take care to organize the informal communication. And that can be all the way from coffee chats and Zoom, juice box chats to many other ways. We've detailed over 20 different ways to kind of facilitate that. But I think that it's a foreign concept to people that you're directly organizing it. Instead of this roundabout way where we have everyone come together at the office and they end up mostly meeting the people on their own floor, now you get to intentionally design this. And I think a lot of companies are not doing that. And then you'll see that people want to go back to the office. I think if you take care of this and you maybe augment it with meetups in person, but this is a great way to make sure that you do form those informal bonds and that camaraderie, which is essential to the company's success.
That's great. Thank you. And Darren.
Hey all, thanks for having me. I'm Darren. I'm the head of remote here at GitLab, and I work across the company to make sure that people have what they need to acclimate well to remote, as well as sharing our story of how we're pioneering the future of work, both internally and externally. And I want to say first off that if this is your first foray into remote work, it's not exactly remote work. There's a big difference between crisis-induced work from home, which many of us are experiencing, and properly structured remote work. For many people, you're losing the commute, but you're receiving almost none of the extra benefits of remote. So I just want to make sure we set the baseline there, that if you think you don't love remote now, it's okay. I like to say that if COVID had the opposite effect and it forced all of GitLab, an all remote company, into a single skyscraper, we're professionals, we would certainly adapt, but not 100% of our team members would be thrilled with that type of jarring transformation. So it's okay to still be grappling with it and figuring it out. And if I wanted to share one thing that I think you should embrace first if you're looking to make the remote transformation, and that is to create a single source of truth to work in. You want to make sure that you're working handbook first. That's where you're going to document your workflows, your processes, and how you work and how you communicate. You may need to hire someone or appoint someone to act as the chief documentarian if a writing culture does not already exist. And the key here is to work handbook first. So you may hear the word documentation thrown around, but documentation can mean something different for every single person. But a single source of truth, the handbook, is universally understood, accessible, and inclusive. And if you're looking for the first thing to document, I would start with your values and sub-values on how to exemplify those when you can't guarantee that everyone is in a specific place day to day. If you Google the GitLab values, you will see what I think is a great exhaustive list on how we do this. Having a universally accessible set of values serves as a guiding light and guiding principles to every successive decision in your remote transformation journey.
That's awesome. And I just noticed that you and I share something remote, which is, guitars behind us.
Look at that. That's fantastic. I love it.
One of the things I like to do, and I've always done remote, is break the two-dimensional screen and go and start to poke around with my eyes about what's going on behind somebody. I think Sid must be in a cabin somewhere in like a remote area. I just have a sneaking suspicion. I hope he is. It looks like he could be. So,
it's
I always
not San Francisco, but it is Napa, which is remote, but not that remote.
Not that, exactly. But it has that, cabin-esque feel to it. So I think I always love just getting curious about the lives behind the screens. I think that also just helps, build bridges of empathy. Well, Sid and Darren, thank you so much for sharing some time and some wisdom with Lambda folks. Like you said, we're all learning this together right now, and in some cases, not necessarily by first choice, but we can probably all take away lessons, no matter which way we go in the future, either partly back in, staying remote. How do we be successful just working together? So you all are known for how well you document. It's obviously part of your mission too as a company. And so I'm glad for you sharing that, Darren. And Sid, absolutely, in terms of how we make sure that informal communication stays rich and meaningful for everybody. I hope you have a pleasant weekend. I know it's a Friday. And thank you so much for sharing some time with us.
Likewise.
Sure thing.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
Thanks all.